Hello friends of the electrified charging fun and welcome to Electrified Speicher, your channel all around Skoda's e-mobility. Charging time and peak power whilst charging is a really prominent topic when it comes to e-mobility. And with the new Skoda ELROQ, the 85, again a lot of questions arise. Will the car really charge from 10 to 80% in 28 minutes like Skoda is advertising? And will it really reach peak power of 175 kilowatts? Well, let's find out. I got a Skoda ELROQ from a dealer and I did a charging test. And when we're talking about this, 10 to 80 means 70% of the capacity of the battery to be charged in 28 minutes, which is around 54 kilowatt hours because the ELROQ 85 has a 77 kilowatt hour net battery, and this would mean an average charging speed of 116 kilowatts. But we are not taking losses into account. We can say around 10% will it be on a DC charger. So we need an average charging power of 128 kilowatts. Let's see if the ELROQ is up to this. I have planned one charging test for this video, obviously, and what should go wrong? So the video would be 8 or 10 minutes and everything is fine. And then everything was completely different than I expected, and it was not one charging test, it were 5 charging tests. And yes, I brought my ENYAQ also to the table to compare with the ELROQ, because basically they have the same battery. For me, it was enormously interesting to record it and to see these results, and I hope this will be for you as well. So let's start. Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes not. But today we are exactly 10% SOC, 38 kilometers of range left. The preheating button is already grayed out as we have reached the optimal charging capabilities. No button is here anymore. And now we plug into that charger here right beside me, a 360 kilowatt charger. I'm alone at that location, so the maximum power should come out. Maybe the ELROQ is your first electric vehicle, so you may be confused about charging time, peak performance or peak power and stuff like that. Currently, we are charging at peak power. You see it here, 174, 172. It's a bit altering, but it is very close to the 175 kilowatts peak power for charging the ELROQ has when you look at the specifications. Yet peak power is not what the car can maintain over the whole charging curve. It will drop to the end, and the normal charge from 10 or 20% to 80, you will see that when it hits 80%, it will drop to 50 or 60 kilowatts, and the higher you charge, the more it drops. Explanations on this from a technical side you find in different videos here on the channel. I don't go into that detail in this video. But this phenomenon, you can make good use of it, because peak power is maintained to around 40–45% SOC. After that it starts declining. If you now only charge, let's say, to 50 or 60% and then hit the road again and do that all over again, you will be faster. Yes, you have to charge more, but just driving on the plateau of the charging power can give you an opportunity to be faster. This is not common. Normally you do it different. You charge from 10 or 20% up to 80, and then average performance is what you are looking for, so that charging time is getting down. The ELROQ has 28 minutes, and we will see at the end of this charging how long it took from 10 to 80% in a real-world test. Yet, playing with the charging plateau and the charging speeds is something which is really funny. I even did a video about it when I drove back from Mladá Boleslav to Mels. Don't know if it's online already, but it will come if it's not. But don't be bothered by that. You can still simply charge from 20 or 10% to 80 without thinking about all of this. And the charging is done. 28 minutes and 37 seconds, with which we nearly hit the 28 minutes the manufacturer told you it would take. The charger I went to with the ELROQ has one big advantage. It's really close to my dealership, so I don't have to drive much to give the car back to him. Yet this charger does not show the charging curve on the display, like from the manufacturer LP-Tronic. Therefore, again I took all the data with my OBD adapter from the OBD port. And then something was really odd. You can see it here. Maybe you already notice it. I'll explain it afterwards when we do the analytics, but did I read wrong data from the OBD port? Did the power from the local network got cut so that we had that huge drop there where there shouldn't be any drop? Or is the ELROQ really charging that way? Well, the ELROQ was the dealer car and I had no chance to go to another charger to do the test again. I had to give it back to him. This wouldn't be electrified Speicher if I wouldn't check whether this charger has a problem or the car. So again, with 10%, I'm here at the charger, yet this time with my ENYAQ. The ENYAQ has the same battery as the ELROQ I had here. More on that a bit later. And therefore, I will plug in my ENYAQ right now and let's see if the charger behaves the same way or different. But this time I will film the display just to be sure. Yes, and then you are there and you don't know what to do, because my ENYAQ charges the exact same way like the ELROQ did at the same charger. So again, we see this big drop of 40 to 50 kilowatts at around 40% SOC. And this is not how my ENYAQ normally charges. In my other charging tests and data, you have that typical ramp or ski slope, as we can call it, like this one. And I can definitely say there was no software update of my ENYAQ or of my battery management system since the car left the manufacturer about a year ago, because there was no update, any update. And so it seems to be that this charger, an ABB Terra 360, is just acting like this and is going down with the charging power. So I repeated the test with both cars at those LP-tronic chargers at IONITY. Repeating the charging test with Skoda ELROQ. We are already up to 15%. We started with 10% again. You can see it. We are charging near the maximum of 170 kilowatts. And I'm at the IONITY Heideland again, yet I plugged into that LP-tronic behind me. Therefore, I doubt that we see that drop. And we are done. 28 minutes and 9 seconds, 10 to 80. And here you see already a charging curve from the LP-tronic. That's a good one, and that is a good result. We've charged over 58 kilowatt hours. Of course, I repeat the same charging at the same LP-tronic here at IONITY with my ENYAQ. And as you can see, we're already up 5%. And we are charging with 166 kilowatts, so I guess we will hit over 170 rather soon. And let's see if we can compare those two charging curves afterwards and if they are similar. While I'm waiting for the charging to be finished, let's talk a bit about this channel, some background information. The English sub-channel is quite new. I launched it a couple of months ago because I did not want to mix up the German and the English videos anymore. The German main channel Speicher Elektrisiert is much bigger with a much broader audience. Yet I like the English sub-channel even though it's rather small. So I will continue to make videos. And when we look at my viewers, my audience, you can divide them into two separate target audiences. The first one is, I call them the technical analysts. They want the deep dives, they want the background, they want to know why things are working and how they are working. This was when I started out 4 years ago with the German channel, main audience, because back in the days, 2021, there was not much information available about the MEB platform of Volkswagen. And a lot of, I would say, technical analysts bought those cars and want to know more. Therefore, I started out with that. Yet, around 90% of the channel are technical analysts. What about the other 10% back in the days? Well, those are now nearly equal. I would say 60% technical analysts and 40% of joyful explorers. That's how I call the other target audience. And the joyful explorers also want to know a bit about the car and how to operate it easily and with fun everyday life, but they don't want those deep dives. They don't want to dig down to the ground of everything. They just want to have a good electric vehicle experience. And I want to serve both target audiences on this channel. Therefore, my content has moved a bit. Now, I will do about half of technical analysis and stuff like that, and the other half more everyday exploring with an EV. So you will find technical deep dives and you will find normal videos and the blend out of it, like this video. This video was about being for everyday explorers. Then the first charger did a very curious charging curve, and we moved over to the technical deep dive, finding out what is going on here. And I hope you like that. Write me in the comments what you are expecting, because 2025 I wanted to focus on everyday electric vehicle usage. Do you want more technical deep dives? Do you want more or the blend out of it? How am I performing with that? Write me in the comments. I'm really curious about that. As you can see, the charging is done. We had about 28 minutes from 10 to 80%, charging 58 kilowatt hours, and there you can even see the charging curve. It has a purpose that I didn't show you the charging curves of the second charging test, because again something odd happens. Before we dig into that and the deep dive evaluation of everything, let's look a bit at the numbers and try to answer the questions from the intro if the advertised data regarding charging from Skoda is in reality true or not. When we look at the ELROQ 85, charging 10 to 80%, yes, they kept their promise, 28 minutes and 37 seconds and 28 minutes, both charging tests well, we can check that. And the ENYAQ as well. There we also got a value a bit below 28 minutes. And about peak performance or peak power, well, every time we hit it. We had 175 up to 176 kilowatts. So yes, what they advertise is true in reality. And what about the average charging speed? Well, we see here values between 122 and 124, with one exemption that one charging test with my ENYAQ was a bit below 120 kilowatts. But I calculated that it should be 128 kilowatts, right? The 70% out of the battery. Well, therefore we can look at the energy which was provided from the charger to the car and the energy which was at the start and at the end of the charging in the battery. But before we do that, if you look at the numbers, they are so close to each other that we first look at the battery temperature, because energy content of the battery is dependent on the temperature of the battery. I had explained that in a lot of videos in detail. For this video, just keep in mind, the colder the battery, you have less energy in the battery. The warmer the battery, up to a specific point, the more you have. And since we've used battery preheating here, we have a roughly equal temperature, 25 to 26 degrees when we start charging. And therefore the energy OBD star, that is the value in the green part, is close to be the same. And at the end again. And that is good, because then the math is much better than when we had different temperatures with the battery. So, as you can see, the chargers told me that they provided roughly a bit below or a bit above 58 kilowatt hours. But the 70% I calculated in the beginning, I said from 77 kilowatt hour the battery can take is 53.9 kilowatt hours. So this is more. Yes, these are the charging losses. And if we do the math between the start and the end content of the energy in the battery, you see that we've nearly perfectly nailed those 53.9 kilowatt hours, a bit less in most cases, but this is not much. And the difference? Yes, these are the charging losses, around 4 to 4.5 kilowatt hours. This is not 10%, this is rather between 7 and 7.5%. Not a bad value. Yes, you have to pay for that energy, because you lose that energy after it left the charger and before it is stored in your battery. Now it's time for the technical analysis of this and for evaluating the charts of the charging and the battery temperature. This is now the technical part, but I'm pretty sure this is for every target audience quite interesting to understand a bit more what's going on under the hood. And first off, we'll compare the ELROQ and the ENYAQ at the Terra 360, the first charger with that drop. In this chart, you see the charging power and the battery temperature. Since I have around 10,000 measurement points at each charging process, I just reduced them, so I took only every 10th out of it. Therefore, you might see on the axis that there are double values like 8080 with the SoC doesn't matter. This is really accurate, and you will know it when we look at the LPtronic values. And what we see here is kind of curious, because both cars had at around 40% SoC that huge drop from 165 kilowatts down to 110, and then again a plateau. And this plateau, this is not typical for the charging behavior of MEB platform, so the ELROQ and the ENYAQ. And after 60%, this is the normal charging behavior. This ramp, this is totally fine. And again, when you look at this, also the battery temperature is perfectly fine. It's raising up to close to 50 degrees Celsius. This is what it should. And then it starts declining a bit because the cars start actively cooling the battery, and you will end with around 45 degrees Celsius. When you look at the blue, the ENYAQ, well, this is up to 40% perfectly fine. This is how it should be. Yet the ELROQ again is doing something weird there. There's a drop at around 30% a bit, and then it's raising to its maximum power. This again is not normal. I think it's between the communication of the ENYAQ and the ELROQ. But what's going on there and what went wrong, I don't know. But these charging curves is not what you should expect. But is it a problem? No, not at all. Because if you don't have that data and just look from the outside, both cars did charge from 10 to 80% in 28 minutes. So the charging itself is absolutely okay. So let's head directly to the second charge, where we compare ELROQ and ENYAQ at the LPtronic 400. And when you see those lines, you know why I'm confused. But let's go into it. What we see here from the ELROQ 85 in blue is what I expected. Just go up to over 170, just keep it to around 40% and then ramp down. You see that little ditch there, which is normal when the battery temperature is over 50 degrees Celsius, which here is the case with 51. This ditch might be a bit less if the battery temperature stays a bit lower. And then it is like you see in the orange line from the ENYAQ. This is the perfect line you normally have there. But what has happened before? What is this? At around 37%, you get a drop again? At an LPtronic, I never experienced that before, and something odd is going on there. And it can't be related to temperature, because the temperature there is exactly the same as with the ELROQ. So I was confused. But again, the ENYAQ charged faster than the ELROQ here. So when you look from the outside, 27 minutes and 30 seconds for the ENYAQ and 28 minutes for the ELROQ. So again, that charging is perfectly fine. There is nothing to discuss about that. But these curves are so odd. And therefore, I had to do a third charging test. Yet, I was not able to get the ELROQ again from my dealer for that third test. Simply not possible. I'm so sorry about that. But we have a close to perfect charging curve from the ELROQ, from the LPtronic, yet not from our ENYAQ. Therefore, now let's look at a third chart where I charged my ENYAQ at the same charging park of IONITY, yet at a different manufacturer's charger, the Terra HP500. Those are these ones here with that halo above, and well known from IONITY. And when you look at that chart, you see now my ENYAQ is doing in orange the charging curve I expect, keeping the plateau of 170 or more kilowatts to around 40%, then ramping down with this little ditch again due to temperature close to 50 degrees Celsius. This is perfectly fine. And when you compare both lines to each other, you know why I was so confused with that huge ditch at the LPtronic. Now let's compare the ENYAQ versus the ELROQ when we take both rather good charging curves, which I expected, and then you see that they both charge rather close to each other. And this is how it should look like. The ditch is more or less depending on the temperature of the battery, so also depending on how good coolant from the outside is, for example in winter or in summer. And in the end, yes, these values are confusing from a technical perspective for me, but when you look from the outside, 28 minutes is met, 175 peak power is met, so everything is fine. Well, in the end, the cars prove that the specification of the manufacturer is true. They charge in the time given, they reach their charging peaks. Everything is fine here, nothing to complain. Yet I'm left confused because I don't understand these charging curves. They are not the normal thing you would expect, and I don't have a final explanation for that. Those videos are really needing a lot of effort to make. Consider this, you need to drive 5 times a car down to exactly 10%, then you plug it in, then you need to charge them all up to 80 again, then you need the complete data analysis, you need to make those charge. This is really much effort, and of course also you need the goodwill of your dealer to give you the car for those tests, and you put in a lot of money. You have to charge 5 times at a DC charger. So yeah, I like this, but to get to that point, to explain everything to you, you put in a lot of work. But I hope that the work pays out and that you are liking the video. So please give it a thumbs up and consider to subscribe if you're not already subscribed to this channel, so you do not miss out on this quality content. And as you now see how much effort is in this video, I would be really happy if you consider to support me, and you will find a PayPal link and the bank transfer data down in the video description. And I'm really thankful and if you support me, and a big thanks to all the people who already supported me to allow me to make such content come to life. And another thing I hope is that we see each other in the next video, and until then, stay full of energy.